In Yu-Gi-Oh!, the Double D or Different Dimension archetype is made up of fiends of primarily dark attribute with a mix of both pendulum and effect monsters in the main deck. It has a sub-archetype known as the Triple D or the Different Dimension Demon archetype that spans both the main and extra deck. While the Double D monsters are based mostly on mythology and demons, the Triple D archetype is based on historical figures, apocalyptic events, and, if you look at the Japanese names of the cards, business hierarchy. In the anime and manga, these cards were used by Declan Akaba, the main rival of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 series. However, there is another sub-archetype to Double D, and that is the Double D Savants. These are a group of pendulum monsters that are all based off of real-life physicists and astronomers from the history, and incorporate aspects of the physicists' work into the cards' designs. These are the cards that I want to talk about. The first of the Savants is Double D Savant Copernicus, a level 4 Dark Fiend monster with 0 attack and 0 defense. It is a pendulum scale of 1 and a pendulum effect where you cannot pendulum summon monsters other than Double D monsters, and once while this card is in your pendulum zone, you are able to negate the activation of a spell card that would do damage to you and destroy this card. The monster effect allows you to send one Double D or Dark Contract card from the deck to the graveyard except for Copernicus, when this monster is normal or special summoned. This monster is based off of Nicholas Copernicus. Born February 19th, 1473, and died May 24th, 1543, Copernicus was the Polish astronomer who first set forth the heliocentric model of the solar system. This was the idea that the Earth and all the other planets revolved around the Sun, which was at the center, instead of the previous geocentric model, which placed the Earth at the center of the solar system. This model was challenged by many and would not be adopted until after the works of Galileo Galilei and Johannes Kepler further proved Copernicus's theories. The heliocentric model can be seen represented in this card's design, as the monster has the sun at its core, and the parts of the monster surrounding it are in a sphere with the smaller spheres on the sides representing the planets in their orbit. The next of the Savants is Double D Savant Galilei, a level 10 Dark Fiend monster with 0 attack and 0 defense. It is a pendulum scale of 1 and a pendulum effect where you cannot pendulum summon monsters other than Double D monsters. And during each of your standby phases, the pendulum scale of this card increases by 2 for a maximum of 10. And then, all monsters you control with a level less than or equal to the new pendulum scale are destroyed. The monster effect allows you to discard this card during either player's turn to target one Double D or Dark Contract card you control to return it to the hand. This monster is based off of Galileo Galilei. Born February 15th, 1564, and died January 8th, 1642, Galileo was the Italian astronomer who further backed the theories of Copernicus by charting the paths of the planets through the sky and discovering 4 of Jupiter's largest moons. Galileo was labeled a heretic by the Church for his championing of the heliocentrism, and was placed under house arrest for the last years of his life. Galileo developed the Galilean telescope, which allowed for a 30 times magnification, which he used to observe and confirm many astronomical events, and help develop astronomy and physics into what it is today. He is now known as the father of observational astronomy. The Galilean telescope can be seen represented in this card's design, with a large telescopic lens in the chest of the creature. The rest of the body is made of protractors and compasses, which were used in his works for charting the motion of the planets. The next of the Savants is Double D Savant Kepler, a level 1 Dark Fiend monster with 0 attack and 0 defense. It has a pendulum scale of 10 and a pendulum effect where you cannot pendulum summon monsters other than Double D monsters. And during each of your standby phases, the pendulum scale of this card decreases by 2 for a minimum of 1, and then all monsters you control with a level greater than or equal to the new pendulum scale are destroyed. The monster effect is when this monster is normal or special summoned, you can choose to either return one Double D card you control to your hand, or you may add one Dark Contract card from your deck to your hand. This monster is based off of Johannes Kepler. Born December 27th, 1571, and died November 15th, 1630. Kepler was the German astronomer who is known as the first astrophysicist. Kepler's observations of planetary motion further reinforced the idea of a heliocentric solar system. He is most well known for developing Kepler's laws of planetary motion, which state that a planet orbits the Sun in an elliptical path, not spherical as was previously believed. It also states that the closer to the Sun a planet is, the smaller the orbit, and the faster the planet travels, and the further away, the longer the orbit becomes is proportional. The laws of planetary motion can be seen in this card's design as the monster has a sun close to its head and the rings with planets attached are going down his body. These rings become longer the further down the body and away from the sun they become. The next of the savants is Double D Savant Newton, a level 7 Dark Fiend monster with 0 attack and 0 defense. It has a pendulum scale of 10 and a pendulum effect where you cannot pendulum summon monsters other than Double D monsters. And once while this card is in the pendulum zone, you are able to negate the activation of a trap card that would do damage to you and destroy this card. The monster effect allows you to discard this card to add one Double D or Dark Contract card from your graveyard to your hand except for Newton. This monster is based off Isaac Newton, born January 4th, 1643, and died March 31st, 1727. Newton was the English physicist who used his theory on gravity to prove Kepler's laws of planetary motion and fully establish the idea of a heliocentric solar system. Newton is known for many things, though. He built the first reflecting telescope, which allowed him to see many astronomical bodies more accurately. He also set the ways of our understanding of optics with his experiments with prisms in the visible light spectrum. Newton is most well known for his theories of gravity and his development of the Newton's laws of motion. His first law of motion states that if an object is moving, it will not move until some force is applied to it, and then if an object is moving, it will continue to move unless some force is applied to it. The second law of motion states that an object will accelerate at a speed equal to its mass multiplied by the force that is applied to it. And the third law states that if you apply a force to an object, the object applies a same amount of force to you. This is best known as the saying, for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. Newton's laws of motion are the basis of all classic physics, which led to what it is today, making Newton the father of modern physics. Newton himself used the laws of motion to further expand his ideas of momentum and energy. He developed the laws of conservation of momentum, which state that momentum cannot be created or destroyed, only transferred. Newton's reflecting telescope can be seen in this card's design at the monster's center, where a telescope can be seen protruding from the monster. The laws of conservation of momentum can be seen in the form of a Newton's cradle on the monster's left arm. The Newton's cradle, often used now as a desk toy, is a device for demonstrating the conservation of momentum, as when the pendulum swings down and strikes the resting balls, the momentum is carried through the resting balls to the furthest one, which takes the remaining energy to swing away, and then it returns to continue the system. The next of the savants is Double D Savant Thomas, a level 8 Dark Fiend monster with 1,800 attack and 2,600 defense. It has a pendulum scale of 6 and a pendulum effect where, once per turn, you can add one face-up Double D monster from your extra deck to your hand. The monster effect allows you to target one Double D monster in your pendulum zone and destroy it to special summon one level 8 Triple D monster from your deck in defense position. The monster effect is negated, and for the rest of the turn, any battle damage your opponent takes is halved. This monster is based off Thomas Edison, born February 11th, 1847, and died October 18th, 1931. Thomas Edison is the physicist best known for his many inventions and advancements in the fields of electricity, communication, and sound recording and production. Edison invented the phonograph, which was one of the earliest forms of a speaker, eventually being further developed into the modern record player. A phonograph was a device that could read the waveform etched into a surface and produce the vibrations and emit a sound made through a large horn attached to the machine. Edison is most well known for inventing the light bulb, which are very different than what we use today, but paved the way for public use of electric lighting and advancing the world forward. The phonograph can be seen in this card's design with a large horn coming out from the monster's base. The main body of the monster is modeled after the electric light bulb created by Edison. The next of the Savants is Double D Savant Nicolas, a level 6 Dark Fiend monster with 2000 attack and 2000 defense. It has a pendulum scale of 8 and a pendulum effect where you cannot pendulum summon monsters other than Double D monsters, and once per turn, you can discard one Triple D monster to target one level 6 or lower Double D monster and have it gain 2000 attack and defense until the end of your turn. The monster effect activates when this card in the pendulum zone is destroyed. You can target one Triple D monster you control and return it to your hand, to place 2 face-up Double D monsters from your extra deck in the pendulum zone, but these cards are unable to activate their pendulum effects for this turn. This monster is based off Nikola Tesla, born July 10th, 1856, and died January 7th, 1943. Tesla was a Siberian-American physicist and rival to Edison, who advanced the field of using electricity in everyday life. He is most well known for further developing the alternating current electric supply system which we still use today. Tesla became fascinated with the existence of electromagnetic radiation and used it in many of his experiments. One that still exists today is the Tesla sphere, which is a glass globe that produces arc lightning that strikes the outside of the globe. This is often used as a decoration or a desk toy, much like the Newton's cradle. Tesla further developed this idea into the Tesla coil, which was a large device which produced low current, high voltage electricity. He used this device in many experiments which would help with electric lighting, X-ray generation, and high frequency alternating current. He also tried to use this to find a way to transmit electricity without wires. The Tesla sphere can be seen in this card's design at the center of the monster. The ring that surrounds the monster and the metal pieces hanging may be a reference to the cage that was placed around the Tesla coil in order to contain the arc of lightning that it would produce. There are 3 of the Double D Savant monsters that have not been released in either the TCG or the OCG. These are Double D Savant Dirac, Double D Savant Einstein, and Double D Savant Schrödinger. What makes this more interesting is that the 3 physicists that these monsters are based on, Paul Dirac, Albert Einstein, and Erwin Schrödinger, are the only scientists out of all of the savants that had their research that dealt with quantum physics. Double D Savant Dirac is a level 3 Dark Fiend monster with 800 attack and 1600 defense. It has a pendulum scale of 8 and a pendulum effect where if a card or effect that is activated that would inflict damage to a player during the battle phase, you can special summon this monster from the pendulum zone. It is a monster effect where if it is special summoned to the field, you take no effect damage for the rest of the turn. This monster is based off Paul Dirac, born August 8th, 1902 and died October 20th, 1984. Dirac was an English theoretical physicist who was the most significant physicist of the 20th century and whose work paved the way for modern quantum physics. His research formulated in what is known as the Dirac equation, which is a relativistic wave equation used to predict how particles at high energy and velocity will behave when viewed. It is a lot more complicated than that, and the math is hard to explain without a lot of context, but the Dirac equation is important to quantum physics and was used to help predict the existence of antimatter. Unfortunately, there is no clear representation of Dirac's work in the design of this card. I believe that the shape of the body is meant to represent a quantum wave pattern, as are the lines of the body. However, this is just my interpretation and it isn't clear. Double D Savant Einstein is a level 5 Dark Fiend monster with 1900 attack and 0 defense. It has a pendulum scale of 8 and a pendulum effect where once per turn you can target one card in either player's pendulum zone and return it to the hand. That card then cannot be played in the pendulum zone again for the rest of the turn. Its monster effect allows you to send this card from the hand to the grave to set one spell or trap card from your hand when an opponent's monster declares an attack. This set card can be activated during the turn it was set. This monster is based off Albert Einstein, born March 14, 1879 and died April 18, 1955. Einstein was a German physicist who developed the theory of relativity, one of the founding concepts of modern physics. Most people know Einstein for his mass-energy equation, which states that E equals mc squared, which means that any object's energy is equal to its mass multiplied by the speed of light squared. He developed the theory of special relativity to help explain the expanding ideas of physics that were no longer able to be explained by classic Newtonian physics. The theory of special relativity states that the laws of physics are the same no matter where you are in the universe, and that the speed of light is always the same speed regardless of the motion of the light or the motion of the observer. These ideas proved that faster-than-light travel was not possible, and led to the development of ideas such as time and space dilation when traveling at very great speeds. This is a very interesting topic which I'd love to go more into here, but that would be a long tangent for this video about Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I will try to put some links of videos talking about this in the description if you want to learn more. This card's design is also somewhat hard to understand. The spheres with markings that surround the monster are most likely representations of particles and the ways they interact at a quantum level, while the sphere in the center of the plane of the body is possibly meant to represent devices used to measure quantum behavior, and the body shows the connections to space travel and the ideas that Einstein had. Double D Savant Schrodinger is a level 6 Dark Fiend monster with 600 attack and 2400 defense. It is a pendulum scale of 2 and a pendulum effect where if a monster battles, you can make the damage become 0 and then special summon this monster from the pendulum zone. It has a monster effect where you can, once per turn, make battle damage you take from a monster battle become 0. This monster is based off Erwin Schrodinger, born August 12, 1887 and died January 4, 1961. Schrodinger was the Austrian-Irish physicist who developed most of the fundamental theories of quantum mechanics. He is most well known for the Schrodinger's cat experiment, where a cat was placed in a box with radioactive material and a flask of poison. If the Geiger counter detected any radioactive decay in the material, the flask would be broken and the poison released, killing the cat. This would mean that without opening the box, you would not know if the cat was still alive or if it had died. So while the cat was in the box, it was in a state of being both alive and dead at the same time, and only by opening the box would you cause the state to settle into one or the other. This was just a thought experiment, however. Schrodinger never put cats in boxes and killed them. This thought experiment was a way to explain quantum entanglement, and how particles can have multiple positions and momentum, and it is only when the particle is observed that the position or momentum are set. While this thought experiment is not expressed in the design of Double D Savant Schrodinger, it is in the design of Double D Ghost, which shows the silhouette of a cat inside of a crystal. As with the other two unreleased Savant cards, the works of Schrodinger are not clear in this card's design. I believe that the mechanical shape of the monster and the field at the center of it are meant to represent the uncertainty principles of Schrodinger's work. Two other cards I wish to talk about today that are both Double D pendulum monsters based off of scientists. However, neither of these cards fall into the Savant sub-archetype, instead being part of the Triple D sub-archetype. Triple D Destiny King Zero Laplace and Triple D Super Sight King Zero Maxwell are both main deck monsters that have both been released in the OCG, while only Laplace has been released in the TCG at this point in time. Triple D Destiny King Zero Laplace is a level 10 Dark Fiend monster with question mark attack and 0 defense. It has a pendulum scale of 1 and a pendulum effect where during the main phase you can add a face-up Triple D pendulum monster from the extra deck to your hand other than Laplace. The monster effect allows you to special summon this card from your hand for 1 tribute of a Triple D monster. Also, before damage calculation, if this card battles an opponent's monster, this monster's attack can become double the attack of the opponent's monster's original attack for the battle step. This monster also has piercing while attacking a defense position monster, and the first time each turn it would be destroyed by battle, it is not, and you take no battle damage. This monster is based off Pierre-Simon Laplace, born March 23, 1749, and died March 5, 1827. Laplace was a French mathematician whose works in mathematics led to great developments in physics, astronomy, and statistics. He is most well known for the Laplace equations and the Laplace transformations used in advanced calculus. These allow people to integrate functions of time into the functions of space, opening many doors in different equations. Laplace wrote a piece titled A Philosophical Essay on Probabilities, but more commonly referred to as Laplace's Demon. In this piece, Laplace said that the present is an effect of the past and a cause of the future, and that if a person could understand all the forces of nature, as well as how everything is composed, they would be able to produce a single formula that would be able to explain everything in the universe. This design of the card takes mostly from Laplace's Demon, though in name alone. The monster is very demonic, resembling the skull of a goat, and nothing else of Laplace's work is clearly seen here. The arrows coming off the back of the creature may be references to the vector calculus used by Laplace's thoughts. Triple D's Super Sight King Zero Maxwell is a level 7 Dark Fiend monster with 2800 attack and 2500 defense. It has a pendulum scale of 4 and a pendulum effect where you can target one face-up monster on the field and change its defense to 0 until the end of the turn. The monster effect allows you to change an opponent's defense position's monster's defense to 0 if Maxwell attacked it. This card also gains piercing battle damage, and you will receive no damage from attacks involving this monster. This monster is based off James Clerk Maxwell, born June 13, 1831, and died November 5, 1879. Maxwell was the Scottish scientist whose work formulated in the classic theories of electromagnetic radiation. Furthermore, Maxwell's equations have become the foundation of classic electromagnetism, as well as modern optics. Maxwell produced the first color photograph, taking pictures of a ribbon through a red, blue, and green filter, which allowed only for certain spectrums of light to be captured on film. When these three images were projected on top of each other, he produced a very crude but visible color photograph. The design of this card comes primarily from the color photograph, with the head of the monster resembling the camera used by Maxwell to produce this image. The main body and the tail of the monster may represent coiled wire, which was often used in electromagnetic experiments at the time. While the Double D archetype has many different monsters that are interesting and have good designs to them, the Savant sub-archetype has always been my favorite for the care they took to incorporate the works of these scientists into the art of these cards. This was just a brief overview of these cards and the physicists, and I hope you found it entertaining and somewhat enlightening. If you're curious about more information on these people and their work, I highly recommend looking into them. Most physics textbooks will have information you're looking for, and the good thing about physics is it doesn't change very often. So you can find some older editions online for cheap that are good enough. I will post some links in the description to videos or channels you may find interesting as well. Thank you for watching.